999ers risk their lives every day, keeping us safe.
My heart was racing, but you just do it because you're a police officer.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
I have been punched, kicked, spat at, sworn at. I think most of us have.
These personal attacks on police, firefighters and paramedics are at an all-time high.
I could feel the blood running through my shirt.
He grabbed me around the throat with both his hands,
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
It's then left me questioning, is this the job that I want to carry on with?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
I'm not going to get beaten by somebody decided they're going to try and hurt me.
Ready to face the next critical incident.
Stand still! Police routine to show yourself!
Coming up, a police officer uses his advanced trauma training to help save the lives of 2 stab victims.
It was a difficult situation dealing with 2 casualties. When I got a chance, I then left the first casualty, went to the second and...
Stop your leg. Is he breathing? Hi, mate, can you hear me?
We see how the police were under pressure to enforce lockdown restrictions when the pandemic was taking its grip on the UK.
We've never, ever had to police like this in our lives. Officers coming to work with one set of rules, and halfway through the day, those rules have changed.
And a mountain bike paramedic in Manchester receives overwhelming support from the public when he's attacked while on duty.
I was so touched, I genuinely had a tear in my eye.
These were called the area cars, and I did my advance so I could drive these, and not everybody could, but there was very, very few women that actually did the area car course. And so when I came out on the streets, it was very surprising for the public as well to see a woman get out of the driving seat.
In Warwickshire, Chris Bachelder has worked as a police officer for 12 years.
How times have changed, yeah.
I know.
It's a career he was destined for, with his mum Carol and dad Steve having both served in the police force.
I always was interested in what they did, always obviously heard stories about what they would do at work, and I decided in 2009 to join as a special to get an idea of what the job involved. And doing that for 5 years, I really enjoyed the work and enjoyed what I got back from it, which drove me to join as a PC in 2014.
As soon as he volunteered, you could see that the policing was in his genes, and he suddenly became into his own. We were absolutely thrilled for him.
This is a standard trauma kit that all firearms officers carry.
Chris is one of just 12 officers with advanced trauma training across the Warwickshire Police Force.
In 2018, I was sent on a 5-day training course. Mine was in West Mercia at that time. And throughout that course, you get to know what the different bits of kit are, how to use them, and what they individually treat. So each bit of kit that's here has got a job that it does. The kit is all designed to work through it in a systematic order. It's there to be accessible quickly, and everyone who is trained would know, where to find the items within this kit as and when they need it. I asked for the training because I'd been to incidents without being enhanced first aid trained, and I felt sometimes I wanted to be able to do more. We quite often arrive on scene before paramedics, and I felt like I wanted to be in a position where I knew that I could do more and have the kit to do more to help people.
And all his training paid off in May 2021, when Chris got a call to attend a suspected cardiac arrest in Rugby Town Centre.
We had a call from our CCTV operator in the town to say that a female had collapsed just in the town centre 2 minutes from the police station. We dived straight in the car and we were on scene probably within about 30 seconds. With the help of my colleagues, we administered CPR.
Stand by, preparing to shock.
Everyone off, yeah? Yeah, off.
She was shocked a total of 4 times with the defib.
Shock delivered.
Just as paramedics arrived on scene, she started breathing again of her own accord.
It's an adult female. She's been down for about 10-15 minutes. She's had 4 shocks.
It's very rare to have been able to get someone breathing again and get that rhythm back at the roadside with any CPR incident. I think it's within a couple of % of people. It's very rare to be able to achieve that result.
She's got a lot of blood in her mouth. I think she's had a fall and she's got an injury to her face. She's got a cut on her forehead.
Thanks to Chris, The woman made a full recovery, and he still keeps in touch with her. During his career, Chris is often exposed to the darker side of life.
During the last 7 years at Rugby, I've dealt with the majority of incidents that police officers face. We've had murders, domestic incidents, lots of violence. But certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, there's been a rise in knife crime and stabbings. You only have to look in the news every day and see that someone else has been killed or stabbed. It happens everywhere, and even in towns such as Rugby.
In June 2020, Chris was called to one of the most shocking incidents of his career so far, a double stabbing.
We had a very short 909 call to say that 2 people had been stabbed and that there were suspects still on scene, and that is, I think, as short as it was. Whoever had called us terminated the call very quickly. The information had come direct to the police, so the ambulance hadn't been made aware at this time, and it was only 5 minutes down the road, so I knew that we would be first on scene in order to try and help the 2 people that had been stabbed and also deal with, any potential suspects were still there.
With reports that the perpetrators may still be at the scene, Chris and his team were entering an extremely dangerous situation.
There's a bit of an adrenaline rush when you realise you go into an incident like this. Everyone's trying to prepare themselves for what might happen, what we might have to do. There was an element of risk that, we could come under attack, I guess, when we arrived there. As soon as we pulled up in the car, we very quickly realised that this was a serious incident and we needed to get a grip of it, really, as quickly as we could.
Later, while Chris does everything he can to save the stab victims, colleague Rebecca goes in search of the attackers.
The offender was, right next to me. That's something that doesn't happen every day.
COVID-19 has been an unprecedented public health crisis, putting unimaginable pressure on the emergency services. The pandemic extended the boundaries of policing beyond anything they'd experienced previously.
Police are here, everyone get out! Police are here, everyone get out! Police are here!
Hang on. Turn the music off. No one's going anywhere, huh? You ain't going anywhere, son. Turn the music off.
Whether you believe it or not, COVID-19 exists, doesn't it? We're all grown up. We should be doing it. Simple as. Okay. So everyone except the gentleman behind the bar, can I ask you to leave, please? Okay. Sorry to spoil the party, but obviously got it for the reason.
COVID's been crazy. That's probably the best way to put it. We've never, ever had to police like this in our lives. Officers coming to work one day with one set of rules, and halfway through the day those rules have changed and they've got to go out and enforce them.
Forces across the UK became responsible for breaking up parties and illegal meetups.
I suggest you shut the music down and we'll talk about your licence. Everybody's got to leave, please. Now.
We had a responsibility on the front line to reduce the spread of this virus, to keep people safe. But it never feels good issuing a ticket to someone meeting up, having a coffee.
But it was the bigger group gatherings flouting the rules, like this illegal rave under a motorway bridge, that proved time and again how difficult it was to police COVID regulations.
Yeah, just a quick message from Officer Sierra 50 at the entrance to the cemetery. They're having concerned parents turn up in cars trying to find their children.
COVID-19, in my view, has been the most challenging time for policing in my 37 years of being a police officer. It has meant that we have had to do things completely differently since March 2020 when lockdown happened. So not only did my police officers have to come to work in an environment whereby there was a deadly disease going around and still going around in community, that people in the main were being told, stay at home, don't come out, don't catch the disease, don't spread it. My officers and my staff, in the main, those on frontline duties, had to come to work to keep the public safe. They didn't have a choice to stay at home. So not only did we have to operate in a new regime and still are doing so, they had to deliver the day-to-day policing. We didn't stop. So we had to police COVID-19 and all the new rules and all the new legislation and all the new offences. You still had to deal with domestic abuse. We still had to deal with county line criminality. We still had to deal with sexual offences. These offences still carried on. So there's been restrictions on the public, stay at home, don't stay at home. You can't associate with people, you can associate with people over the last 2 years or so. And the enforcers of all of those rules, of course, are the police officers.
All units have premises are aware of our readiness.
Police! Taser! Stay where you are! Stay where you are! Everybody stay where you are!
Officers were often met with hostility when carrying out their duties.
Missiles! Missiles!
Can we have this door locked off?
Missiles screaming glasses.
That's right.
Get your hands off.
Everybody keep calm! Everybody, keep calm! Stay where you are! Stay where you are! Stay where you are!
So that, again, has turned into people, I think, rebelling against being told they have to comply with government rule and regulation, and they take their frustration out on those who uphold the law. Again, in my view, completely unacceptable.
On the 31st of October 2020, up to 700 people attended an unlicensed music event at a warehouse in Yates, Somerset. Police were called to break up the party and to stop hundreds more accessing the site.
There was a lot of people that came from a long way away to gather to form for this rave. And it went on for several hours. It was hugely problematic, significantly irresponsible. Because it was at a time when people were asked to isolate because of COVID, and it was when people were losing lives. Hundreds of people a day were dying, and yet these people decided upon themselves to descend upon a residential area within Bristol and have a rave for their own benefit. The risk it had to the police officers, we were pulling officers from all over the place because it was just so sudden, and what we then had to do was prevent any more people gathering and joining, and the hostility that police officers faced in that situation was horrendous.
Officers were injured when some of the crowd became aggressive, throwing bottles and lighting spray cans.
Get back! Get back!
What the restrictions were at that time was to stop large-scale gatherings for their protection, because you just didn't know what the spread of COVID was. But these people seemed to think it was the police's fault to stop them from gathering. It just didn't make sense to me, and it was ridiculously irresponsible. People get brave when they think they're not going to be identified, and that's probably the biggest risk with large-scale gatherings is because of the size of it, the dynamic of the crowd, the ability to remain anonymous within that crowd and commit crime and assault people. People seem to think they'll get away with it easier.
After the incident, a large-scale investigation was carried out. 5 people admitted offences, including assaulting an emergency worker, obstructing police, failing to leave land as requested, and spitting at a police officer. 1 man was jailed for 38 weeks. The other 4 defendants received sentences totaling 22 weeks in prison. 15 people were issued fixed penalty notices for breaching COVID restrictions, including 2 men who received £10,000 fines for their role in organising the event. Many offenders weaponised COVID by deliberately coughing and spitting at police officers.
Right, do not spit at me. You're under arrest for assaulting an emergency worker. Is that clear? Is that clear?
2020 saw a rise in attacks on emergency workers across England and Wales, with more than 300 prosecutions for assaults on staff during the first month of lockdown. There was a 21% increase in assaults on UK police officers in the first 3 months of lockdown.
You haven't got the COVID-19, have you? Yeah, yeah. Right. I'm not bothered. If you want to get computer, I'm not bothered. Mate, give me a cough at this. Is it? I'll cough like you like. I'll cough. I'll cough because now if you want to get corona, you get corona. I'll corona.
Disgusting, appalling. Spitting at any time is appalling. but to be spit in when you may or may not have a deadly disease is appalling behaviour.
Police officers are brave, end of. You know, that just goes without saying. I think having to work through the pandemic added a different level of bravery. I can't think for anyone in any job that you do where you think it would be acceptable to go into work to have someone threaten to spit on you, saying that they've got this horrific disease. And all suspects were thinking that, well, if I say I've got COVID and I spit on an officer, maybe they won't arrest me.
Still to come, PC Chris Bachelder uses his medical training to save the lives of 2 victims of a double stabbing.
With a chap who had been stabbed in the chest, there was a couple of times when I thought he may well die.
Someone open up that bag for me and get it a bit closer.
He just very quickly snapped into the medic's role. This is my job here and I need to save these people's lives.
And while he's on duty in Manchester city centre, mountain bike paramedic Ian Shortman is a victim to a shocking attack.
Before I had a chance to look and see, I felt an intense pain in the left-hand side of my head.
Got a stab wound to the chest. Concentrate on this chap first.
In Warwickshire, police officer Chris Bachelder was called to a double stabbing where both victims were seriously injured.
I knew that we would be first on scene in order to try and help the 2 people that had been stabbed and also deal with, you know, any potential suspects were still there.
Just get that bag open for me.
With the perpetrators still potentially at the scene, Chris puts his life at risk to try and save both victims using his advanced trauma training.
Got a stab wound to the chest. Dan?
There was an element of risk that, you know, we could come under attack, I guess, and we needed to get a grip of it, really, as quickly as we could. With a chap who had been stabbed in the chest, there was a couple of times when I thought he may well die.
Someone open up that bag for me and get it a bit closer.
Eyewitness Chris quickly established just how fatal the casualties were. He just very quickly snapped into the medic's role. This is my job here and I need to save these people's lives.
We couldn't delay any treatment to the casualties.
Some other bits in here I just need.
We applied what's called a chest seal over the stab wound, and the chest seal was designed to stop any more air being drawn into the chest cavity and causing complications.
Watching Chris work, he went back and forth to the victims and directing the officers on there to do this, do that, whilst he was, you know, cool, calm, collected.
Right, put some pressure on it for me.
It was a difficult situation dealing with 2 casualties. When I got a chance, I then left the first casualty, went to the second.
Is he breathing? Hi, mate, can you hear me?
My colleague had found a stab wound just on his inner right thigh and applied a trauma bandage.
On his thigh, mate.
This guy could literally die in front of us.
Can you open your eyes?
Once it appeared we got the bleeding under control, went back to the first casualty and was just monitoring, make sure he was still breathing, making sure he was still responsive.
With Chris attending the victims, his colleague PC Rebecca Wright focuses on finding the attackers, and one of them is dangerously close.
I went to speak with witnesses, identify suspects, watch CCTV there to work out exactly what we were dealing with. I had somebody come up to me and show me a video of the incident that had occurred, which was very rare to have evidence so readily available to us, which showed the offender. That then identified to me that the offender was, you know, right next to me. That's something that doesn't happen every day. The suspects have made off normally by the time we've arrived, or they're there, but it's obvious it's them. But this suspect blended in so well with the general public, which was quite scary, really. The offender was obviously then placed under arrest straight away and taken away to custody.
Yes, he's breathing, he's breathing.
Using all his medical expertise, Chris has kept both victims alive before the paramedics arrive. They are rushed to the hospital for surgery, and both survive.
I've never been to a double stabbing before, and I think it is quite rare. Having multiple casualties as part of an incident is quite rare.
The reality of stabbing sometimes, it's never as fatal, thankfully, as they seem. This one, though, it was exactly how it came across. It was exactly that there's 2 people being stabbed, and it turns out one of them was in the heart and one of them was in his artery in his leg, so it was so fatal. And thankfully to, Chris's medic training and his skills, he did ultimately save their lives.
You okay? You remember me?
I think it was very fortunate that we were able to get there very quickly, that we had officers there who had the right skills in terms of administering first aid. But even with that, we thought it might well be a murder investigation that we were faced with. But fortunately, we'll be able to give that initial first aid at the scene, allow time for our blue light colleagues to arrive and take over. And fortunately, the victims in this case were able to survive what were kind of horrific injuries.
Once the casualties had left the scene and went off to hospital, there was a lot going on. We had a big scene to manage. There was still information coming forward about where possible suspects were. One suspect was arrested at the scene, but there was another one still outstanding. And very quickly, information was coming forward to identify who that second suspect was. Inquiries went on to try and locate him, and he bragged on Facebook about what he had done and made quite a joke about it. The next day, he actually returned to his property and was arrested at his home address, which is within the block of flats. And I believe, the knife that was used in the stabbing was found in his freezer, and various other items that linked him to the offence were found, and that with the footage of what had gone on, he was convicted at court.
At Warwick Crown Court, one offender was convicted of wounding with intent and affray. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The other attacker was convicted of attempted murder, wounding with intent and affray. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison. He is appealing his sentence.
This job can be a risky one, and I certainly think about the impact that might have on me or my family if something were to go wrong, but it's always, I think, an afterthought.
Since the incident, Chris and colleague Rebecca are now in a relationship.
I think living and working together works really well.
We just get on really well, don't we?
The shifts work out well. Yeah, we sometimes get a lot of days off together and sometimes we don't.
Sometimes we miss each other, sometimes we don't.
Due to his medical training, Chris can get called to some of the more violent incidents, which causes Rebecca concern.
Do you worry?
Oh my God, yeah, of course I worry. Yeah, if you don't, you can't talk to me 24/7 whilst you're at a job. So until I get a text from you, I don't know if you're safe or not. I guess it'd be the same for everyone, but our job just is a little bit more dangerous sometimes. Being Chris's partner now, I definitely feel different to him going to jobs than I did before we got together. It's just, I want him to come home to me now.
I think Rebecca does worry. Well, I know she does. She tells me that she worries, and quite often I'll get involved in incidents at work which are maybe a little bit more risky than others, and I think she definitely waits for that text message to say that all's okay, and whilst might be a little bit late coming home, everything's fine.
Chris loves his job so much, and he wants the results. He wants to lock up the bad guys, and he wants to save people's lives.
The presiding judge over the case wrote personally to Chris's chief constable, Martin Jelly, to commend Chris's actions at the scene. And Chris's mum, a former police officer, is extremely proud.
The other officer whom I singled out for a mention in dispatches is PC 1136 Chris Bachelder. He did not give evidence in the case, but appeared in body-worn video footage shown to the jury of the aftermath of the assaults and first aid being given at the scene to the two men who, as a pathologist confirmed, had both received injuries that should have probably proved fatal. We are all lucky to have people like that looking out for us.
As an organisation, Warwickshire Police, we're extremely proud of what Chris has done on that day. I think it's been widely recognised by medical professionals and by the judge in the case that if it wasn't for Chris's intervention and the actions that he took, it is unlikely that the victims would have survived. It's not commonplace necessarily for judges to comment on police officers' actions, either in the investigation or at the scene, but the power of the commentary that the judges produced in terms of Chris's actions and how really he saved the lives of these two individuals. That gives me great pride in the actions of Chris. And ultimately our role as police officers is to protect the public, is to save life, and actually this is an excellent affirmation of why we all come to work and why we are police officers in the first place.
In a bid to beat traffic in the busy city centre streets of Manchester, mountain bikes are being used by paramedics so they can reach patients in under 4 minutes and in some cases less than a minute. Since their pioneering trial in 2009, countless lives have been saved as the medics use their bikes to attend 999 calls.
The mountain bike system came about because Heathrow Airport was actually too big. So when there was an emergency at Heathrow Airport, once the ambulance was airside, it took more than 8 minutes, which was the time allotted for the most serious categories, to get to a patient. And a member of the London Ambulance Service, a gentleman called Tom Lynch, came up with the idea of, we'll put everything onto a bike and we'll transport everything to the patient. And the idea came about because Tom was actually a BMX mountain biker for Great Britain. So our ability is we can take the shortest possible route to an emergency. We'll ride safely and we have to maintain the safety of the public at all costs. However, we can go as the crow flies, so to speak.
Working for the ambulance service for over 20 years, Ian Shortman became a mountain bike paramedic in 2006.
My job is one of the most amazing jobs that you could possibly think to do. We meet people at their absolute worst, and hopefully we make a big impact in their lives. We promote recovery, we assist with recovery, and we get you to the hospital if that's what's needed, on time, in an appropriate manner, and with the correct treatment.
The bikes are high-tech, and Ian is armed with all the essential medical equipment to enable him to deal with most emergencies.
This is what we ride, fully kitted out mountain bike, front panniers, rear panniers, lights, sirens, and most importantly, a thermos mug. And inside here carries all the kit that you would expect to see on the back of a car. It's just, instead of having a car in the city centre, we have the mountain bikes. As we open up, we have our basic life support bag that has all our basic equipment and observation equipment, just the same as every other ambulance. We have a defib, which we can not only shock you should you need it, we can also monitor your heart and see what rhythm you're in. And then here, in the heavy one, colour-coded red is all our life-saving equipment.
But using a mountain bike as a mode of transport means working solo.
I'd say it's a very specialised role. One, you have to be fit. Two, you have to know your job very well because you are on your own all the time.
Based in Manchester city centre, Ian thrives on working so closely within the community.
The bikes seem to set people at ease. People seem to be happier when they know we're around. They'll often come on up and ask us what actually is our role, what we get up to, what do we treat, what don't we treat. Especially if we have foreign visitors, they'll like to take photographs and find out the ins and outs of our job, because most countries don't actually have the mountain bike paramedics.
Ian is one of only 2 bike paramedics in the northwest of England.
Originally, we trained 16 members of staff, and unfortunately over the years the numbers have dwindled. Some people don't like the weather, let's face it. We're in Manchester city centre. It rains more often than it shines. There's also a lot of aggression focused on you when you turn up. A lot of the jobs that we get involved in are drugs and alcohol. And when you are trying to wake someone up from a drunken stupor, or when they are confused through drugs, people react differently. They lash out, they can be verbally abusive. Some of the times, members of the public will ring us and ask us to attend people who are homeless and who are just asleep. And when they are constantly being woken up by people, they get aggressive.
Working on the front line in an urban area means Ian is often exposed to the negative side of city life.
Manchester is definitely a busy urban area, probably second only to London. I suppose the danger we have is the aggression that a patient puts to us. The unfortunate thing is you can't predict what the public will do towards you. We don't have a steel structure around. We don't have the ability to close a door on someone and lock the door. Once somebody is at us and showing aggression to us, we're in the thick of it. And I think in that respect, we are probably more vulnerable than most members of the ambulance service.
And in December 2019, Ian's love of his specialised job was seriously put to the test when he was subjected to a violent attack.
The day had been just like every other day for every paramedic. You had numerous different jobs. It was coming up to 6 o'clock at night. My dispatcher, Vivian, had said that there was a job for me on Watson Street in the city centre, and could I make my way to a 50-year-old male who was collapsed on the floor. And as I'm proceeding to the patient, the caller turned round to me and said, "He's my dad. We've just been out drinking all day. There's nothing wrong with him. He's just drunk. That's all we need. We just need to get him up and get him in a taxi and take him home." I started to do some observations. I started to do his blood pressure, his heart rate, everything we would do for every patient. I decide that I'm going to cannulate him, effectively putting a needle into his skin and then leaving a tiny little bit of plastic in so that we can administer drugs if things go wrong. Because of the kind of a night it was and where we were, I'd taken my high-vis jacket off that I normally ride in. I'd taken my helmet off so that the patient could see me, could recognise who I was instead of just seeing a white helmet. I became aware of something on my left-hand side, and before I had a chance to look and see, I felt an intense pain in the left-hand side of my head. And then I seemed just to be going through the air and landed into the road. I wasn't quite sure at that point what had happened, but I knew I could feel an awful, intense pain through my head. I then began to realise that somebody was above me. And at that point, I curled up into a fetal position thinking, I have been attacked and this is going to carry on.
Ian hits the emergency button on his radio to notify the control room he needs urgent assistance.
The button I chose this time was the priority button, which basically means that when this message is registered in the control room, they know that I don't want to wait.
And ambulance dispatcher Vivian Bowden answers the call. But Vivian is not just Ian's colleague, she's his fiancée.
I immediately think, is there something wrong with the patient? That he immediately needs my attention. So I picked the voice up. That's what I was expecting. What I got was Ian, in a very calm voice, just saying, I have been assaulted. The aggressive male has kicked me in the head. I am all right, but I need police. I need somebody here now to help. From my side, things then happen very quickly. So while Ian is talking in my ear, I'm repeating his words, and my colleague is ringing the police and repeating everything that Ian is saying to me. The performance managers immediately get hold of a senior paramedic and dispatch him to scene, and we immediately get the nearest available ambulance to scene as well, just so there's extra people there for assistance.
Ian was taken to hospital for an assessment.
The nursing staff at first didn't really believe the incident had gone on because it's such an unusual incident to hear about.
And Vivian left the call centre to be at his side.
He looked flushed, side of his head looked quite red, his ear looked like it was on fire. And that was when I said to him what exactly has happened, and that was when he told me the actual full scale of it. And one of the first things out of my mouth were, "You had your helmet on though, didn't you?" And he said, "No, I've taken it off." And I literally just went, "You idiot. Why would you take your helmet off?" Because it had never entered my head that he'd ever do that while out on the streets. I always presumed he'd have his helmet there. So I think once I realised it was a kick to the skull, not the helmet, I started to realise this was more serious than what I first thought.
The consultant said, "I think we should send him for a CT scan. We need to see if he's got a fracture, we need to see if he's got a bleed on the brain. We need to just make sure that nothing is amiss."
After an anxious wait, Ian got the all clear, but then discovered just how lucky he'd been.
The consultant of A&E said, from where I was kicked, if it had been about an inch either side, there was a possibility I would have lost my life. I just thought I'd been kicked, I'd be fine. To actually realise afterwards that I could have died, I could have left my partner with no fiancé. I actually could have died doing the job I love.
Ian went home to recover from the ordeal.
When we got home, he was quite quiet and subdued. He wasn't really concentrating on anything. I turned the telly on, but it was as if he was just staring into space. His head was absolutely throbbing. He just kept saying my ears ringing, and it's this awful thud inside my skull.
The offender was charged with assault on an emergency service worker. He was sentenced to 18 weeks in prison, suspended for 12 months, 200 hours of unpaid work, and had fines to pay.
For me, whilst he does have a criminal record, and that will go against him, I personally feel he got off lightly. What is the point of having an emergency service workers bill if judges do not follow it through?
In the past 2 years, there's been a surge in violence against ambulance workers, with more than 3,500 attacks on emergency care staff recorded in 2020. And as the attacks are becoming more frequent, they are becoming more violent. While they were on a call-out in Wolverhampton, paramedics Dina Evans and Mick Hipgrave were seriously injured when a man stabbed them both.
The patient just ran at me with a knife in each hand.
I looked across and I could see that she'd been stabbed in the chest. I just remember saying to Dina, "I can't breathe."
He was bleeding from his side, and I remember thinking, we're going to die.
The police tasered the man, while Dina and Mick collapsed on the grass.
I believe that Dina had got a life-threatening injury and she might not survive. So my focus was to try and treat Dina.
He was bleeding from his side, and I could feel it all pouring into my hair. And I remember thinking, we're going to die. We're going to die on this grass. And I remember saying to Mick, "Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die, I've got children."
They were rushed to hospital. Mick was treated for a single stab wound, while Dina underwent emergency surgery and had substantial muscular and nerve damage. The incident necessitated a review of safety procedures at West Midlands Ambulance Service. And one of the recommendations was to look into providing paramedics with stab vests.
We've got the stab-proof vests that we're trialling. Provides coverage to the front and to the rear of the body and to the sides. And this particular model's also got shoulder padding, so it covers all the vital organs. The incident with Mick and Dina was obviously something that did act as a catalyst, so it was decided that the only practical way forward was to actually trial stab-proof vests and to see whether it is a viable option for the Trust. And we're probably going to be running the trial for a couple of months just to get a full sort of coverage of all the situations that people face.
I think it'd be nice going out to people and kind of feeling more safe.
I thought they would be heavier than this.
Way heavier.
Yeah, they're a lot lighter than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic. It's something that I think needs to be done. I think we need to look at whether or not we're going to need them going forward.
My feelings towards the vests are mixed emotions. Should we have to wear them? Personally, no, I don't think we should. We shouldn't be in a position where we are being attacked, and we need that safety.
I believe that it will offer staff protection against serious injury. I know that had me and Dina been wearing vests at the time, we wouldn't have received the injuries we've received now. So unfortunately, it's not what people want to be wearing, but I think in these times it's come to be an essential part of our daily kit that we wear.
I made sure I got my name on that list for the stab vests. I think I would feel so much safer. Yes, they can still attack you, but at least this area, the important area, is protected. And it might be that little bit more restrictive, but no more restrictive than a collapsed lung. That's how I see it.
Ian Shortman has found that a bit of escapism has helped him cope with his challenging job.
What do I do to de-stress? I repair cars. I love repairing cars. It just takes all the pressures away and it takes any anxiety away, and I just lose myself in it.
Ian continues to be dedicated to the job, and after the incident was reported in the local news, he's been overwhelmed by the support he's received from members of the community.
There was an outpouring of members of the public who know us from the city centre saying how unfair it was, how wrong it was morally that you attack someone who comes to your aid. I was so touched by members of the public. I genuinely had a tear in my eye because I didn't realise that people in Manchester felt that way about the bike unit.